Good morning, coffee moaners.
Look who I found.
I missed you.
Oh, we missed you too.
Are you going to do me?
I am, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. If you're listening on podcast, welcome to Coffee Moaning. Sorry, we had a few issues with some of the last two episodes of Coffee Moaning uploading. They went to draft and then they didn't appear. So apologies if they didn't pop up at exactly the right time. How are we all? What day is it? Thursday. Fantastic. So we are going to be passing through. Obviously, we're going to be briefly talking about. Wow! The heavens have just opened.
Oh
quite
God!
literally.
I'm worrying about all the things in the garden that shouldn't be in the garden.
What, like
all sorts
plants?
of things.
I'm loving it because of everything that is in the garden that should be in the garden that's being fed. Obviously, we're going to touch upon the Israel-Palestine crisis, but we're not going to spend an overly heavy amount of time on that. I feel like I've talked quite exhaustively about it for the past 2 days, so we'll touch upon that. We're going to be talking about the Big Brother gay slur, using the term gay in a sort of insulting way or a colloquial way. We're going to be talking about that.
But it'd be nice because we're going to do it in a different way to everybody else because of Mark's experience.
And that wasn't because I was the only gay in the village. Adele getting sober. She's been sober for 3.5 months. And what I think is really interesting about this is her saying it's really fucking boring. And Nadia's going to talk about, we missed Menopause Day. Was it International Menopause Day?
Yes!
Was it? Oh, right, yesterday. And obviously earlier in the week I touched upon testosterone. That's we use the word touch. But of course we thought...
Touch me.
Is that
I
testosterone
wanna
there?
be dirty.
Wow. That's the stuff I put on my toothbrush. What would have happened if I'd cleaned my teeth with it?
God only knows. You'd have got muscles, you'd have got a boner.
I'd have been talking total bollocks. I just don't know where they come from, but they just keep on coming. So those are our topics for the day. And also, just at the end, a very interesting story. Well, really traumatic story. It's not an and finally, because it's not like make your heart sing, but it's like, oh my God, arresting in an arresting way. You're not going to believe the story I've got for you later. So there you go. So.
How we doing?
So tell us about your break.
How was it? How much did you miss me?
Can I say I got an awful lot more done than I ever do when you're here?
Do you know what? It's really important for couples to have time apart.
Yeah, and I sensed that, it was nice seeing that you were away. It was
I really missed you. I missed doing this. I missed the girls. I missed the house. I missed the dog. I really missed everybody.
Well, we missed you too.
Yeah.
We absolutely did miss you.
Yeah.
But I'd be lying if I didn't say that. I think what happens for both of us, we stress each other out, and to not have that stress was quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, oh God, it's Christos's birthday.
Oh my God! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Christos. Happy birthday to you.
I wish we'd effing known a little bit sooner.
Oh, happy birthday, honey.
Natasha! You're going to give her the old...
These are friends of ours. They have the most beautiful baby you have ever seen. I'm obsessed with their baby. And they're a lovely couple. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Hope you have a good day. So, here we are. Here we are once again, having all missed each other.
Everyone keeps asking about the Spar. So what I will say is...
So say what you did.
It was... We had a lovely time, but I literally despair about this country.
Right.
Because we could have got to Mexico for the time that it took us to get there.
We did vlog some of it. It was quite dramatic trying to get there, wasn't it?
It took us all day.
They were only going to Brixton.
To get there, right? It should have taken 2 hours. Points, failures, traffic jams, everything. So by the time I got there, because we had to get a car in the car for us, I had the worst back I've had in a long, long time. In fact,
Thanks,
do you remember?
May. Thanks, May. May says, I look so well too, even though I've not been to a spa.
It looks really well.
May, come over for coffee.
Do you remember ages and ages ago when I went to Ibiza with all the women from Loose Women and I had that terrible back and I couldn't move for the first 2 days?
Oh, I can't
ages ago.
No.
Exactly the same thing happened.
Oh,
so I was going to go to all the yoga classes, couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything because of my back.
Maybe your back really misses us, and so it
It
puts
was
up a protest.
I didn't really say anything about it on the vlog because I didn't want to be moaning on, you know. But it was really, really painful. So for 2 nights as well, I hardly had any sleep because every time I moved, the pain was terrible. And because we're in the middle of nowhere, and it's the first time I've been away ever in my life without painkillers. I had no painkillers.
Oh no!
So yeah, so it was.
Tony Dunsford says you need steroid injections.
No, well, I'm all right now. It's much better now. I did hours and hours stretching out the psoas muscle. That's what was wrong.
Yeah, what muscle?
But we were there to like review, and Dina and I to taste their new menu, and the food was yum.
Menu. You know, if you have a steroid,
and we took our parents.
Well,
And
her
boy,
parents, not
Mom,
mine.
haven't they got a treat with
You've got
what's coming in the vlog?
You've got one of the oddest images you could ever hope to conjure in your lives.
On our Instagram later today.
When I first saw it, a myriad of questions emerged.
I just have to get my mum and dad's
places.
permission. I'm sure they're going to be fine with me showing it, but I just have to get their permission if they say I could show it to you. Just brilliant. Watch out tonight.
Most importantly, though, did your? I mean, I know your mum's well into that kind of Spar sort of thing. She likes a bit of pampering and looking after. But did your dad have a chance to relax? Was he?
My dad got really ill one night, which was awful. We had to call the doctor, so that was bad. And it was, and then so he was very ill for one of the days, and then of course, my parents were supposed to be going to Jordan next week, and then that night was the dreadful strike on the hospital in Gaza, and we were all really distraught. You know, we were seeing the pictures of in Amman, where my father's from, because, you know, Jordan borders the West Bank side of Israel, and there were, you know, we have huge amounts of family out there, and our girls were messaging me, and they were really upset by what they were seeing, and yeah, so that was a bit of a sleepless night as well, because just the nightmare of being in a hospital, the nightmare of being in a hospital, and then it's bombed, and then the images that we are seeing that obviously isn't out there on the media, but yeah, I mean, we are absolutely devastated. Our heart is just aching for that region and the suffering that is going on. It's just awful, and you know, yeah. So that was a very difficult day. That day, we were all very tearful, and
it'll be. I mean, I think the thing to remember, and I think this is the, you know, what's really important here before anyone sort of gets sort of funny about where one's focus lies. I've talked on every single morning. We've talked about the Israel-Palestine crisis.
Absolutely.
One can't forever in one sentence stick on both sides of the equation. You have to bounce between the two. And I think, you know, an absolute given, as lots of people have likened the attack on Israel to, you know, 9/11, you know, Israel was attacked. It was a terrorist act. It's appalling. You know, images and footage and discoveries are still being made about the absolutely atrocious things that happened to those poor Israeli civilians.
We focused on that,
and we still do. You know, and it's still there's still an equivalence. There's a total equivalence between civilian loss of life.
To me, it is no different when I see an innocent Israeli civilian and I see an innocent Palestinian. There are many, many, many Israelis that want this to end.
Well, interestingly,
they want this warring. They want to live in peace. 75 years ago, everybody lived in peace in Palestine, you know. So, you know, there was no, you know, the Arabs, the Jews, they all lived together, and many Israelis still want that. So it breaks my heart. I just cannot bear seeing these innocent people terrified out of their minds. And it was just a very hard day for us.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it was weird seeing, I was sort of explaining on one of our lives, I can't remember when, the significance of Jordan actually expressing such a strong sort of opinion or stance on anything, because they are the Switzerland of the Middle East. They do try and there's for good reason. That's not a criticism. It's because they actually house which
is where my father's from.
They house a population of Palestinians that's larger than the Gaza Strip. So Donna Powell.
Do you know what? Also, King Abdullah, who I've spoken about before, we all had that young summer together. King Abdullah that I met him and his friends that I met in in one of my family's hotels in Jordan. And we just had this summer, we went to the palace, we were on the boats, you know, me and my cousin. And he was just so young and like free. And, you know, he'd been brought up in American England. He was at Sandhurst when I met him. And I was just so struck at the weight on his shoulders now. It was just
massive.
Just so many mixed up feelings, you know, and I am half Arab. And I feel it, you know, I feel connected, deeply connected to that region. And even our daughters do, we're only quarter Arab, we just do. And we just want peace. Surely there must be a way that all these people can live together. Nobody's been able to sort it out in 75 years, though.
Well, that's why we're not going to sort it out now.
No, we're not going to sort it out.
No, and also, it's stupid for anyone to think that we can't. Donna Power asks a good question. Why are the media so biased? Would like Nadia's take on it. Why is nobody standing up for the Palestinian people? I just want to explain something about this, which I think is really dangerous. It's really dangerous to describe every Israeli as anti-Palestine, because they aren't, for sure. I mean, there was a huge pressure group of Israeli Jewish members of the population in America who were protesting outside the White House, who are anti-Israel's policy in the Palestinian sort of territories. And it, you know, so that's really important. But I think what's happened here is there's a conflation of, if you are sympathetic at all to Palestinian civilians, you're in somehow or some way saying that Hamas are all right, and Hamas, it wasn't as bad, and you're somehow supporting Hamas. That's not the case at all.
I think we've lost sight of humanity if we say that, because we are not talking about the Israeli government and Hamas. We are talking about the people being torn apart in the middle of this. And anybody that wants to attack somebody for just having these human feelings, they need to look at their own humanity, I think.
Natasha Milchin in Israel. I'm sorry, guys, but you talk about it as though Israel's had its moment, as Mark has previously put it, but our hostages are still... I haven't suggested that at all.
We were talking about that just yesterday.
Yeah.
It's just today, I'm talking about it from my position and from my father being Jordan and my parents supposedly flying out there next week and our concerns around that. But that doesn't mean we are not aware of the hostages. Now, and I think Mark's done that very fairly every day.
And also, the really important point about the hostages is the hostages, which are a living, breathing, live, active, really dangerous,
Why is the government bombing the hell out of where they could be?
You know,
if I was the family of the hostages, I would be saying, stop, for the love of God.
So absolutely not. So just to clarify that, Natasha, but also the other point to really, really stress here, and this is where it gets really difficult for both on each side of the equation to not fall into the trap of just feeling fury, is that there are countless Palestinian families who will feel likewise that prior to even this awful event, they have suffered their own equivalences to the hostage crisis. You know, they'll have had deaths, there'll have been sniper shots, there'll have been people shot, there'll have been, if you keep going back to what started first, you just keep going further and further back. It means that no two wrongs make a right.
Siobhan, exactly. Ceasefire. Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire is what's needed.
Because the ceasefire is important for those Israeli hostages. I mean, if we just don't think about those people that are in Gaza with no electricity, no supplies, no food, and the UN not allowing any in, if we don't consider that, let's consider the Israeli hostages that are also being bombed. Ceasefire. Let's stop the rage. We can have the anger and we can want change because we're angry about everything that's happened, but we can stop the rage because the rage is tipping the balance. I mean, Jordan won't meet Biden, Egypt, Iran raging. This is unbelievably dangerous where we are now, and we need to just... I don't know anything about... who am I? I'm just saying this from a mum's point of view. I'm just can we just stop? ceasefire.
just think, and I just think there has to be an absolute. But I think we mustn't. I think one thing everyone mustn't do is weaponize the ability to talk about innocent civilians on either side of this awful conflict, because you're right to ignore the fact that this is a living, breathing, active crisis for many Israeli families and the Israeli people. Is of course.
Natasha, can we ask you that actually? How are the Israeli people feeling about the bombing with those hostages still in there?
Is there a sense that that's the right way to get them out?
Yeah, because if you think of it just from the personal level, if it was our family member hostage in there, I would be screaming for it to stop. Has there been? Is there a call from that to Netanyahu from that angle in Israel?
I mean, Natasha's talked a lot. Milton has talked a lot about not. I know you're not a fan of Netanyahu. You know what? I really wish.
Oh, don't get you wrong. No, we love you. We love you. Shit, don't get me
wrong.
No,
but it's just really important because I think we've really it's been incumbent totally on me, I've felt in the last couple of days, to absolutely stress the fact that there is an absolute equivalence. I think what can get forgotten, is that in the intensity and awfulness of this terrorist attack by terrorists, we don't seek to understand that it didn't come from a vacuum of nowhere. We don't like it. It's awful. It's the most abhorrent expression of hate. But I've said it many times before, we have to understand what happens. I was using the analogy with the kids of, you hem in, say, 200 adolescents, and most of the Palestinian population is young.
50%, under 50.
Hem them in for 200 of them. Not all of them. In fact, the vast majority of them aren't going to lash out, regardless of what conditions you keep them in. But don't be surprised if a small minority of them do in a most vicious way. And if they do, of course, you slam the behaviour. But if you don't look at why it's happened, you're never going to get an answer to this. And my real worry here is that I do worry, and I do hope that behind the scenes Biden, and if Sunak landing has got anything to say, I think one of the things they have to really be saying to Netanyahu and the Israeli government is this: do not offer a fool's gold solution to your own population, that by going in and hitting hard, you might be able to literally winkle out, unlikely, but you might be able to winkle out every single Hamas member, if that's your aim. But if you do, in another 10 years, it'll be Hamas in another name.
I've been seeing a lot of videos of young children, such innocence, going, they came and they were like, and I was getting my football and all my family have got, and I'm looking at that child and I'm thinking, at the moment you've got real fear and panic and innocence, but what will that become in 10 years' time? And that's what's the future? And for me, I think it just makes it, if I was living in Israel, I would be even more scared about that. And that's why I think, if we could get to a place of ceasefire, and if we could get to some sort of sympathy to both sides with the innocents, but at the moment, I just think we're creating more and more and more horror down the line.
Just a couple of I just want to share a couple of sort of details, just kind of informational details, really. I posted on my Instagram last night frustration with the United Nations. The United Nations tried to pass, or Brazil tabled a proposal for some kind of a pause in all hostilities to gain humanitarian aid into the area. The US vetoed it. The UK abstained from it. Now, the reasoning for that, and I said, West hang their heads in shame. I just think we have to almost kind of forget about the language being used here. The humanitarian crisis is so extreme that you have to actually literally have a ceasefire and a pause before we stop. But the reason the US vetoed it, they say, is because there was no mentioning in the proposal at the UN that Israel had the right to self-defense. And no one is saying that Israel doesn't have the right to self-defense, but it just strikes me as perversely cruel that you can't sign up to an agreement that's a temporary agreement to get humanitarian aid, and then you could return to Israel has the right to self-defense. So the US vetoed this, the UK abstained from it, so it didn't move. And just want to quickly say, I do find it a little bit frustrating that Joe Biden is somehow claiming some massive victory here by having a phone call with the head of Egypt and saying, potentially tomorrow, right, look, think of the scale of the problem here. Over 1 million people displaced, right? What's the deal that Biden's got with Egypt, which is being promoted everywhere as if it's some big achievement? 20 trucks. 20. Think about 20 trucks. That would take 2 minutes for them all to pass the front of our house. 20 trucks will go through tomorrow from Egypt if they can fill the potholes on the roads that obviously Israel has bombarded, which is why it's closed, because it's been bombarded. Then, only if those 20 trucks humanitarian aid is used for the right purposes will they potentially let in another 20 trucks. That's like using that to stop it. It's just not enough.
But then tying it up in so many caveats that it's actually impossible.
So it's not a deal. It's not a deal. It's not something that, Biden should run around going, I've done something amazing. There needs to be an immediate ceasefire.
But you see, it's so good. You've drilled into it. You've looked, what is this? But actually, it's the headline.
The headline
everyone
is,
will believe.
Now everyone thinks humanitarian aid has been...
Biden has put humanitarian aid in there.
It's not enough. It's not enough. And look, we acknowledge, totally get it from Israel's point of view. Israel's concern, why is there a concern from Israel? You have to look at it from both sides. Israel's concern and Israel's argument about their forever control, if you like, of the borders of Palestine is the fear that military staff and stuff is smuggled in and that these kind of attacks can happen. And that's where the crisis happens. I was suggesting yesterday that when we get way beyond the heat, potentially, hopefully, of this crisis, I think there needs to be this kind of deal tested, where the United Nations are brought in to monitor with a sanctioned Palestinian security force and an Israeli part of the Israeli army that isn't absolutely fervently anti-Palestinian, because there are huge swathes, don't get it. Just because it's a uniformed army doesn't mean that you don't get extremists in it. That they manage a test area, a test border region between Palestine and Israel, and they literally test relinquishing controls, but monitor it so that free movement could happen and see what happens. It's the only way I think it could happen.
What are ways that you don't work for the United Nations?
No, but for Israel, I could hear the risk. But if you've got international personnel in there to monitor it and manage it, and actually have the agreements in place, so then people can't then thump Israel if Israel go, look, we agreed to this, we tried it. I think on both sides there needs to be compromise. There needs to be some suggestion of let's try this. Literally, rather than building a wall like Trump, why don't we remove a wall for like 100 meters and you have a test stationing point managed by the UN that allows more freedom of movement so that at least the Palestinians don't feel so trapped. Something. This is the only way, I think it's the only way that you're going to be able to, resolve this historical problem, really. Anyway. So Rishi Sunak's over there,
that'll sort everything out.
Yeah, brilliant. Superman. Okay, so sorry, we spent much longer on that than we were going to, but I think it was really good that you talked about it from your dad's perspective. I think your dad, it will have really, this is hitting people of both sides of the equation.
And my families that are Palestinian as well. I'm just very, very mindful. I'm very, very mindful in what I say, because I only speak from the heart. Like you say, it's probably the most complicated political situation you can imagine. And I think there's a lot of people spouting stuff without knowing it, reposting stuff without knowing what they're saying. And I know my limitations on it. I just come from a place of humanity, I hope.
Okay, let's talk about gay. The gay word as
You're
a slur.
so gay.
Yeah.
This is so gay.
So this is the woman, I have to confess, I haven't been watching it, but this is Kerry in Big Brother, who has been branded as awful, I guess, by people on Twitter and what have you, for using...
old Twitter branding.
Yeah, which journalists just lean on.
They just love it, lazy journalists.
But anyway, this is a moment in the house. Some of you may have seen this. I think they had to do a camping thing or something, and they decided to hide her bed or move her bed or something. And she used the phrase something along the lines of, it's so gay, or, well, this is gay, she said, when she was angry. She said, this is gay. And of course, I think she's been cautioned, and I think a number of people have, wondered whether she should be pulled out. But yeah, so this is capturing a few headlines, and this. I think this goes to the heart of something that you thought, Nadia, about bringing in a sort of real cross section of sort of everyday people who maybe aren't plugged into the social media world of hot topics and hot mics and what you should and shouldn't say and all that kind of stuff.
And also, a lot of people just have the old-fashioned language and don't actually mean harm and don't understand offence. We are still learning about loads of things that we've said that we didn't know was offensive. It's always about going, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I had no idea, tell me. and then learning. So I thought this would be a good thing to talk about, because I think a lot of people that say, oh, you're so gay, don't actually say it. We've actually no idea of how that leaves a person feeling. So you feel quite strongly about this, growing up with a gay mum and feeling very embarrassed about that at school, weren't you? You were mortified by it.
Absolutely. Lee Darren says, so if I ask, are you gay, is that wrong? No. It's not about asking if you're gay. It's like, this is so gay. To use the... what's used in schools?
I don't think it is acceptable to ask somebody if they're gay.
Is it not?
No.
Oh, right, I didn't know that. Is it not?
Yeah. No, it's not.
Oh, I didn't know.
You're not supposed to.
I suppose everyone in my life, childhood and everything would talk about their sexuality. I suppose you didn't even necessarily need to ask. Yeah, I guess so. So gay is mean and mad, asks Mint. No, I think the way in which she's used it here is and it's how it's used in schools is, oh, you're so gay, or this is so gay, or it's so gay.
So if you're silently gay, if you're silently gay at school, and you're hearing on a regular basis as the insult is, the best insult is you're gay, oh my God, that's going to be horrible, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, when I was young, to be fair, I think I've given you a bit of a bum stare. The phrase "you're so gay" or "that's gay" wasn't used when I was at school.
Oh,
people,
sure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was never said. What was said to me was, "You must be gay because your mum's gay," But over the years, when I've heard, the phrase used, it has become weirdly one of those words that people feel it's all potentially all right to use in a kind of, I don't know, oh, that's a bit weak. Yes, that's a bit weak, or that's a bit insipid.
Totally
or that's a bit,
means, the insult is that you're weak, that you're pathetic, that you are. Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible terminology, the way when it's used like that. Of course, there's like, oh, this is so gay. Like, could be camp, could be like, oh, this is just wonderfully gay, wonderfully camp. But I think a lot of kids at school, it's just so much the lingo. They just say it without ever even thinking about it.
But I do remember, I mean, and I think I suppose the thing that I was interested in from my own experience is why could it be seen as such a loaded insult for youngsters? And I think that speaks to the still embedded kind of prejudice and homophobia that, speaketh no name. Because as the child of a gay parent, when it was said to me, I remember as a youngster being, and it's funny how I moved through education, I went to college, all these worries just literally fell away from it. There was no worry at all. I couldn't care less. To the point where it almost got to the point where I really hope people think I am gay, because I don't want them to think I'm a stupid, heterosexual, nasty man.
So what did you feel when people say you're gay?
I ran for cover.
Because
what did
you think they were saying about you?
I didn't. Well, if I interrogate it, I can't even begin to, because I knew it wasn't wrong, but I knew it was different. And I think that's what it was. I just didn't want to be marked as different. It felt different enough that I didn't have a dad. I felt different enough that it was a single parent. I made things complicated for myself by saying that my mum's long-standing girlfriend from the age of 12 until 16, listen to this, to cover my sort of, it wasn't embarrassing, and again, it's really important to stress this, it wasn't an embarrassment about homosexuality. I understood the politics, I understood the freedom and the need for equality. We were on march, but in amongst your peer group, this wasn't understood or tolerated. And the suggestion was, I didn't want to be told I was something I wasn't, which I just felt strongly about. And I didn't want an assumption to be made. But I said to everyone that my mum's girlfriend was her sister, which became intensely complicated when people came around and realised that my mum slept with her sister in the same room.
Oh God! So then you had a massive lie.
And that's when friends started to go, I don't know if I want to come round.
Oh, because they said she has sex with her sister.
So I think people think, I made it deeply complicated.
Somebody just said there, I don't understand it because she's friends with Jenkin, which is exactly the point. She is, I mean, I haven't watched enough of it. She's probably not homophobic.
Elliot says she's not one of the nicest in there. She's not the nicest in there, which I think feeds the anger.
Yeah.
Her saying this hasn't helped the way she's coming across.
Yes.
They were right to pull her up on it, I think.
Yeah, the right to pull her up on it. And, and this is what I've said, hasn't it, about this new series of Big Brother. There's going to be an awful lot of this because people, a lot of people don't know the new language yet. And that I do worry about, because I do think people could be really picked on who aren't bad people, who haven't got bad intention, but just say the wrong thing.
Okay, well, here's a different one.
I mean, God, I could sweat at the thought of the things that I could say that would be the wrong thing. I mean, I'm learning, but you know.
I suppose the other aspect around all of this is it's all right for someone who's gay to use the phrase, or is it in a pejorative or a negative way? Is it though? Is it necessarily? Or was that received kind of prejudice? You know, that idea. Thing that struck me as always really weird.
If you're always doing it, because you know, it's a bit like if you're really overweight and you're constantly going, oh, well, I'm so fat.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's like trying to get that in before anyone can
or drinking
say
more
it.
and just going, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah. It's batting away any potential problems.
Because a lot of people have mentioned here about the origins of the word gay is have a gay day and all that kind of stuff. Oh, I'll tell you something I found so odd. I had to conceal from my grandparents, I mean, when I say had to, I was doing it for my mum. She asked me not to say anything. My mum's sexuality. So there was this curious situation where I really felt like I just couldn't, you know, even if there were things going wrong, I couldn't tell. I didn't talk about my mum's relationship. I'd go kind of weird and quiet. And what I found really contradictory, I don't know if anyone else found this, who is either gay or the child of a gay parent. They'd be watching mainstream entertainment. They would love Larry Grayson. They would love Liberace. They would love all these kind of gay, gender sort of fluid, essentially, entertainers, which they loved. I'd be watching this stuff going, why? And I literally remember thinking one time, why can't I talk to them about my mum being gay when they love all these gay presenters?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And so I never really understood that. It's a weird contradiction. And so I suppose gay, you know, for my nan, gay was fun. But I do. Oh look, I wanted to read that. Cambo, where's your previous comment, Cambo? I like this. You said, oh yeah, when my sister was at school, she was called Leza constantly. 18 years later, all those people who said this are so drawn to her now because she's just genuinely cool and sure of herself as a gay woman. Wow. Sometimes I wonder if it's a little bit like the N-word, you know, when it's like in music and stuff like that. It's that sort of, it's all right. Within your own
it's like me sometimes when I say things about Arabs, and it's because I'm like totally comfortable with that because I'm Arabic. Yeah. But I wonder if in the past when I said it, it was because I was fearful of what people actually thought. Because there was a time in the 80s where, oh my God, I mean, the Arabs were just like, right the way through. But so I would say it to deflect it, you know.
Right, we're running out of time. We missed International Menopause Day. Tell us about it. Tell us about why it's important that we say that we missed it, because it isn't important. It was important that it happened. We missed it yesterday, right?
Well, I just think when I think back, that like when I went into menopause was only what am I now? Was only like 10, 12 years ago, and all of us, me, Kay, you know, all the women that were sort of going into it together, really, and loose women, none of us knew anything about it.
Right, yeah.
None of us knew anything about it. I went 10 years with HRT and I regret it. I wish I'd had it back then. And you know, like the younger loose women are always saying, God, I'd never heard a word about this. I didn't know. Some people get really scared about it, some young women, because there's so much said about what is tough about it. And what you have to remember is when there's all those symptoms being talked about, not everybody has all those symptoms, and some people have no symptoms. So it doesn't mean that you're going to fall into a vat of hell, which I think is important to keep saying, because a lot of people actually have become, you know, sometimes when you go, awareness is good, but not too much awareness.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's weird how people say this thing that's happened with ADHD, where they go, oh, look, it's been gone on. These are constants. These aren't moments.
When are people going to stop talking about menopause?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, no, because it's part of life.
Because it's part of life, and the school system isn't doing enough to inform and educate men and women, because it's not just a women's subject. Because every man has some kind of a relationship with a woman, whether that be their mother or wife, whatever. You have a relationship with a woman, and it has it can have a huge impact mentally and will physically, even when you can't see it. And I do feel really sorry for people that don't want to take HRT or can't take HRT, women with like all my friends with estrogen, hungry, breast cancer, can't take HRT, and it's really, really difficult for them, and we need to be finding out more and more about, but you know, women's health goes to the bottom of the list all the time. But I just thought I would just quickly talk about this, because we're going to do a podcast So that is testosterone. You cannot get that on the NHS, this one, right? You have to buy it. And you see some women, like literally, they slice this open, they get every last bit out because of how much it costs.
Wow.
And because life is so different for them without it. Now, I think it's only 48% of women that use testosterone that feel they have effects. I had an effect. I started
What did you do with it?
I started with it just a little, about that much, onto the thigh, just here, every morning.
Right.
But for different people, it'd be different doses. Of course, you always have to consult a doctor. But this was the missing link for me. I started on progesterone and estrogen. I found it really difficult. I'm still struggling with progesterone, to be honest. But
in what way?
Because I've always found progesterone hard to tolerate, even when I was young and I was on the pill. It's just something about me and progesterone.
Well, when you say hard to tolerate, how does that? What do you mean?
Well, because most people will swallow it every day, but I have to put it somewhere else.
Oh, I see.
Every other day.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then getting the right balance of it. So I quite often will have breakthrough bleeding, and it can be a bit of a problem. But the missing link was the testosterone, because for me, that was if you had, because when they did my blood test, they said you've got no testosterone. She said to me, I wonder how you're walking around, because the exhaustion that comes to that. 4 o'clock I'm finished. I just wouldn't imagine doing anything after 4 o'clock. You will not have any sex drive if you don't have any testosterone. Same for men. It's the same for men. It's the same for men.
I think we should talk.
That doesn't mean that you don't fancy your partner anymore, but you do not have the sex drive.
See, I think people will confuse that with the idea of what Viagra does or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Simplicity.
Well, no,
it won't make you fancy. It won't make you
fancy someone.
Yeah, it won't. You won't be turned on by somebody you wouldn't be turned on otherwise.
Right. It doesn't. Yeah. Okay.
No.
I think it might be worth doing maybe a How to Stay Married, like you were suggesting, a chat with someone who could talk. Obviously, predominantly, it's the menopause is a female issue, but also just nibbling at the edges of what it can do for men. Because, I mean, I never, until you said that, I didn't even think, I mean, I don't have a problem with my sex drive, but I might do one day.
But you might have other things going on for you.
Well, maybe my sex drive is half of what it should be, which is frightening.
What I didn't realise was that you can have gone through menopause, like you'll go through menopause and you won't have estrogen. But I didn't realise that some people don't actually need testosterone because they're still producing it in some women.
I see.
So not everybody needs it.
Can I tell you one of the most important things I found?
I just want to say one thing, but there is a testosterone that you can get on the National Health that isn't this one, but you have to bloody beg for it. And I just think that's outrageous. It's like my menopause woman said, women's bodies need 3 hormones, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Who was the wise guy that decided we'd only give them 2? That's what Dr. Louise Newson said to me. It's like, why are we not allowed to have this one? And some women are using their partner's testosterone because they can't get hold of it.
What, not grafted or taken from their body?
No.
I see. Sorry, the way you sound that made it sound like there was
I wouldn't recommend that. You have to have properly tested and know what your body needs.
Can I just say, I think one of the things that I think is really, it's kind of dawned on me only in the sort of last 2 or 3 months. I think one of the most, these awareness things, I think is really important what you said about how people get really sort of, haven't we had enough mental health awareness? Haven't we had, well, insofar as, have you had enough of being a human? Because if you haven't, then this is cyclical. This is
I've had enough talking about diets, fitness, exercise.
Or what kind of a cold you've got, or the boredom of the weather and all that kind of shit. Come on. No, one of the things that I find menopause awareness has really, really, really helped me with, and I don't know if anyone else feels this, is that actually there's a... Oh, sorry, I was confused by that message from Maddie. What was I saying? You
were saying... What's been good for you with awareness around menopause?
The really good thing for me around awareness has been, historically, it's allowed me to go back through my life and look at members of our families from different generations. I think Eleanor Frame, nobody said the word menopause growing up, and I think this is really important. No, I think this is really important because I think we can all probably remember, certainly older people, people of our age and older, will have had, I was thinking of your mum talking about her mum actually, Betty talking about her mum. We all have had quite troubling or perhaps quite limited or kind of cold or awkward relationships with relatives way, way, way back in the past. And I find things like menopause awareness and sort of almost, you know, also the thing around sort of postnatal depression, all these things really help potentially provide answers and explanations and soften a kind of judgment that I think we all have on old relatives. You know, we'll often say things like, oh yeah, I love my nan, but she was a bit this. Actually, what was she going through?
Yeah, what was she going through? It's like Kay and I were talking about this the other day. She goes, do you remember, there'd be women of a certain age and they just become miserable and tired.
Yeah.
And written off.
Yeah.
And that's just so awful. It's just so awful. And the other thing is, there has been over the years so many women that were put on antidepressants, which apart from anything else are more expensive for the National Health Service than HRT. And they're put on antidepressants because they're told that they're depressed and that's why they don't want sex, or they're depressed and that's why they feel tired. And actually their body is starving for the you know, the hormones that they need. So the more the better, and people can always switch off if they don't want to listen. I've just noticed Faith has asked me quite a few times there about keeping the patch on. So I put my patch, I'll show you it. I put my patch here. So that goes that side, then that side. And the thing to do is I always get some, if you've got some toner, facial toner, and I just wipe the skin with that first because yours is falling off, right?
Like an Our Price record sticker.
Yeah.
That never comes off quite.
So that it's totally clear. Let it just dry a bit. Somebody said to me they use surgical spirit, but wouldn't that hurt?
I don't know.
Oh no, because you put it on your ears. Surgical spirit, another thing. And just peel it off without touching it and slap it on.
There you go. Our Price. Dawny Harvey, I'm sure the menopause was the reason my partner and I ended 2 menopausal women, one of whom could not have HRT. It was a nightmare.
That's what your mum says, isn't it? With lesbians, it's so hard.
My mum
both
and
of
Liz.
you are having a menopause at the same time.
Yeah, Mum, you and Lizzie, my God.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, we didn't get a chance, though, it's in the title. Adele gets sober. This is interesting. I thought what was interesting about this, just quickly, as we're sat in the middle of October, Stoptober, yeah. Do go and check out on my Instagram my little kind of rattling through the pros and cons of Stoptober and October. She says in an interview, I was borderline, or in her performance actually, I was a borderline alcoholic for quite a lot of my 20s. But she says and admits it's boring. I miss it so much.
Do you know what? I think you should do a whole thing on this on your Instagram.
What?
About this, because there are so many people that are struggling and want to give up, and too often it's just like you're just told, oh, it's all amazing and you'll feel brilliant, but you will often say it's fucking boring to drink. But then what do you do with that?
Well, I think if you do check out I ran through a checklist of the pros and cons, or the pros of Stoptober, and I take a very gallows humour to it, and I always have done about sobriety, because last thing I want to do is sit there at the end of a table wringing my hands in a state of purity, kind of telling everyone that what they're missing out on is the golden light of fuck that shit. What a load of old nonsense. I would much rather not be getting annihilated drunk, though that's where I'd end up. Like last night, for example, I really, not because anyone was doing it, it was a very sober, kind of just very calm, but Dina's birthday, we were all sat around. I just wanted a drink, not for any other reason other than I wanted to artificially trigger my energy in a different direction, because sometimes it's really hard to do it all the kind of heavy lifting to get yourself to the right place, because you want to actually have a laugh. It's not because you want to sit there, and so when she says it's boring, I think there's no contradiction in being able to say this. Being sober can be fucking boring, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be sober. Because being drunk can be really fucking boring too. It's not about the alcohol, believe me.
There's no boredom like a boring drunk.
It really isn't about the alcohol. But I just think sometimes it's really, really refreshing to hear someone say, and I don't necessarily know if that's why she was saying, but I don't know if she's saying that's because she's struggling to not drink, that she finds it boring. And it
what I was interested in as well, but maybe we'll talk about this another time, I wonder if people will take against her for this, like they did when she lost weight. So it's a bit like, but you're Adele. You're from South London. You get pissed. You know, you get pissed like we do. You know, you struggle with your weight like we do, and those sorts of shifts often an audience finds really difficult to deal with, don't they?
But thank you, Natasha. That's very sweet of you.
Which would happen within friendship groups as well.
Yeah, but you've had that because you're off the telly, you had that reputational thing with members of the public and with people you work with. I wasn't off the telly, but I had that reputational aspect to all of my friendships, which is why so many of them vaporized, is that, you know, in a sense, you know, what is Mark unless he's getting drunk? Which, of course, think about that.
Who are we?
No.
If he's sitting looking at us sober, that's the
No,
thought.
but if you then go back into what is the reason you drank, and that narrative, that evil voice of what are you if you don't drink? How can you be any of the... That's the voice, that's the horrible voice of the addiction in me. But of course, when it's reflected back at you, when you stop drinking by a bunch of people who go, oh, actually, you're not half as much
I
fun.
wonder if any of those friends of yours have ever watched Coffee Moaning.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah. Cambo, as a non-drinker, I have to defend it all the time. But but I never have to defend also not taking drugs. We've said it so many times. It's the
I'm
only
terribly
drug...
sorry. I can't have any
the only drug you
heroin
have to
tonight.
apologise for.
I'm doing a run in the morning. I'm really, really sorry. I can't smoke that big fat spliff. Only I'm driving home. You know, and yet people that don't drink have to lie all the time. They have to pretend that they're driving, or pretend they've got a run in the morning, or pretend that they're on antibiotics. You know, and it's not fair.
Good point, Cambo. As we've often said, I don't know if you've seen any of our stuff about alcoholism and addiction. We often say alcohol's the only drug that you actually have to apologise to others for not indulging in with them.
Yeah, if you're new to this channel, there's lots of content because Mark is, we should have said at the beginning actually, Mark's 18 years sober.
Well, hang on a minute. Next Saturday, I'm 19 years sober.
Yay!
It's my sober birthday next Saturday. Are we doing a live Curly Cooks? Maybe we could do something non-sober.
Yes.
On the, was it the 28th? Did we like? I don't know, you've suddenly gone still.
No, I was just thinking
really
about
weird.
something that I had planned to do. For
Oh,
your sober,
I see, sorry.
But now I've realised I can't do it because you'll be filming.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay, anyway, guys, have a lovely... another happy birthday to Christos. Bless you, mate. Love you. And I'll drop you a line after this.
Big happy birthday.
Big happy birthday. Hi to everyone. Lovely to see new names there. Thanks, Cambo. Lovely to see you popping up. Thank you, Natasha Milton, for all of your input from Israel. I mean, you know...
Yeah, we love that you are here,
yeah,
and we love to be challenged. And
hi, Joni.
we love all kinds of conversations with you guys.
Absolutely.
So please always hand us that.
And just to say that the final little trip round, is it Studland? Yeah. Studland is coming later today.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Bye.